Good evening. I didn't know I did all those things, actually, as I was listening to them. But anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. I realise that with that introduction about classification, I'm going to talk for the next 40 minutes, and I don't think the word classification actually appears in my script at all. So this is a talk very much about shipping in general, links into my role with government for the Maritime and Marine Industry Leadership Council, and basically tries to cover where I think the risks are, especially for the UK, in terms of government policy around shipping, about the operation of ships, about the human element, etc. So I'll talk for about 45 minutes, and hopefully we will engender some questions at the end of the evening. I don't normally speak from notes, but actually today, for talking for 40 minutes on this topic, I'm going to have to run through a scripted presentation. So let's see how that one goes. So as it was said, I currently sit as the co-chair of the Marine Industries Leadership Council, and I'm CEO of Lloyd's Register. I'm in a privileged position. I always think a very privileged position. I have access to senior government officials, business leaders, and academics worldwide. My organisation, Lloyd's Register, has its primary role to minimise operational risk and improve safety for stakeholders across many business sectors. So we have a very unique view on the world and the critical infrastructure that supports society. Most importantly, and this is very important for me, I have no shareholders beyond those who govern the foundation that Mark mentioned, and they kindly allow me to speak freely about my views on the future of society, the future of government, and the role of business. And during the next 40 minutes, I hope to stir some passion, some debate, and possibly some argument through the things that I say. As most of you have a specific interest in shipping, tonight I'm going to examine the strategic role it plays in support of the global economy, the value it provides to society, and the consequences that will arise if our government fails to treat the maritime supply chain as critical infrastructure, and the risks associated, and also talk about the risks associated with operations and some of the new regulations that will come into force. I've always been fascinated by Martin Stopford, the Clarkson analyst, who talked about shipping as the biggest poker game in the world. And actually, when I was asked to do this lecture, I thought that's a good topic to think about. And actually, since hearing it and thinking about it, I think where we are now, we've moved away from poker, and consequently, I think we've moved into a period of roulette rather than poker. So on that note, we'll start with this first video. You know, roulette is named after a French diminutive for a little wheel. And roulette allows players to bet on a single number, a range of numbers, red or black numbers, odd or even, or zero. But in their casino, the ship owners regularly bet on deploying a single dry fleet, a mixed wet and dry fleet, big ships, small ones, new efficient ships, or cheaper second-hand ones. The range choices are similar, not least in the uncertainty of their outcomes, and probable return is just as varied. As you know, to determine the winning number and colour, a croupier spins the gaming wheel in one direction and an ivory ball in the other on a tilted circular track which runs around the circumference at the top of the wheel. When the ball loses momentum, it falls into the wheel, where one of 37 coloured and numbered slots hosting the winning bet. In America, they added a 00, which further improved the house odds. And it strikes me that you can draw some analogies to things like the Jones Act and other protectionist measures the Americans enjoy in the shipping world. For the ship owner, the market is the croupier, and the ports and commodities are the slots. Will your bet come good? Who knows? But if the ship owners of today didn't possess an incredible collective appetite for a big gamble, the whole world would be totally different. In roulette, the odds are designed so that over time, the punters will always lose 5.28 cents for every dollar that they bet. Let's hope that shipping produces a better result. The public transport community, for whom safety and security are primary concerns, has certainly improved the odds of safe passage over the years. The number of people in the European Union who died in transport accidents covering all transport modes fell 37% between 1999 and 2009, according to Eurostat. Commercial shipping is showing a similar positive trend, with a high of 1,370 fatalities in 2006, dropping to just 42 last year, according to IMO. While those appear to be comforting trends, there is no room for complacency. Transport accidents are still the largest single cause of death among people aged between 15 and 29. Unlike accidents at sea, in the air, or on the rails, road accidents, due to the comparatively small number of people involved in each incident, tend to receive less public scrutiny and less public outrage. But back to shipping. Given our responsibility to public safety and global commerce, there is little doubt amongst us that the maritime sector is vital, even if it is largely undervalued by those looking in. Yet, here we are today, representing an industry that has been allowed to deteriorate through a lack of vision, a lack of investment, and lack of support from successive UK governments. That neglect has slowly eroded the capability of our Royal Navy, our marine cluster, and the related supply chain. It has resulted in a weakening of the London finance, London legal and insurance communities in its support of the global industry increasingly controlled outside the UK. Our political leaders appear to have lost sight of the fact that we are an island nation, that it is totally dependent on the sea for our economic future. They seem to also have lost sight of plenty more, so maybe we shouldn't feel victimised. Our current energy supply strategy, particularly nuclear, is a good example. As an island nation, we will always depend on a strong marine capability. As such, the risk of eroding the marine capability is far greater than its shrinking contribution to GDP. What we are gambling on is the prosperity of our children and their children, and with so much at stake, it's clearly time to improve the odds for them. Our rich maritime history does not entitle us to an influential role in the future. We are entitled to nothing. Our industries of the past will remain exactly that, unless we elect to give them long-term state support and encouragement in order for them to compete on a global level. Our politicians are increasingly transfixed on the short term, on local voter and national sensation issues that could affect getting them re-elected. But while they focus on the cosmetic, to be seen to be doing something, the long-term challenges are ignored. New tax regimes, strategic infrastructure investment, education and training and incentive schemes to protect our marine supply chains could all help to mitigate some of the risks that we face. But first, we need those political leaders to recognise the threat posed by their failure to act. As an island society, we are almost totally dependent, as I said, on marine transport for food and energy supplies. And could there be two more critical commodities? 40% of the food we consume is imported. And since 2004, the UK has been a net importer of the energy we need to keep our families warm and our businesses thriving. The trend towards dependence is growing. Despite slowing demand for petrol, our dependency on oil and petroleum product imports continues to grow at pace. According to second quarter DECC statistics, we imported 5.5 million tonnes more of these products than we exported, compared to 3.4 million tonnes just 1 year ago. That's a comparative growth of 62% in 1 year. The growing dependence on imports is, as I have said, coincided with an unprecedented erosion of our maritime capability, making us captive to the nations who deliver the basic commodities that we must have. Does that sound like a sensible gamble to you, or just a reckless bet? Political strategies aside, as a country with a remarkable maritime heritage, I find it sad to witness the UK's decline. That is why I accepted my role at the Marine Industry Leadership Council. But the more time I spend in this role, the more I've come to believe that the short-termism of our electoral system is in itself a strategic risk, especially to the long-term, capital and human-intensive industries such as ours. I don't believe this can be blamed on incompetence. I'm a firm believer that most governments know exactly what to do to put things right. They just don't know how to get re-elected after they've done it. So they choose the politically expedient path over the right one that is right for the majority and for long-term sustainability. As someone who has benefited from a career in shipping, I feel compelled to do what I can to help build the kind of partnerships, particularly between academia, business and government, that can improve the prosperity and create rewarding jobs for young people. I know that that goal was shared by my former co-chair, Mark Prisk. The UK needs more politicians like Mark if we're going to stop gambling on the prosperity of future generations, because of the demise of the marine cluster is symptomatic of the fates of other traditional industries that once thrived on our shores.